This is the second challenge now for the inputs and the variables option. As you can see, the three again, the top one's the easiest and they work down. So the first one is fairly straightforward, it's very similar to what we've done already. The second two are a little bit more difficult. If you pause the video now, and then I'll be going through the answers shortly. So the first answer that we've got is this, and obviously you don't have to write it in the exact same way, but this is how I've decided to lay it out. So my first part here is, if I just move this down so you can see the question, it says Dave owns a sweet shop, ask for the person's name and age and how many sweets they want to buy. So we're not doing a lot in terms of calculations here, all we're doing is we're printing out information. So it starts off by asking name, age and number of sweets, and we're just then putting it in one simple printout. Notice I haven't bothered putting age as a number because I'm not doing anything with it, I'm just displaying it. Now when we run this program, what's your name? Dave. How old are you? 20. How many sweets do you want to buy? 20. So you can see there now it's put all the things in for me. Obviously I've done a little bit of a boo-boo there because I've got two double space, so I could take that out here just to make that code a little bit better. So the second project, the shop is only selling cola bottles. Each cola bottle costs 50p. Ask how many the customer would like to buy and work out the total value. So what I've done here is I've written this code as so forth. I haven't asked for the person's name because the question hasn't really asked for it. So we've set a variable here, cola bottle, as a constant, so its total is going to be 50p in this program as per the program requirements. Now obviously I haven't put 50p like that because Python wouldn't have a clue what that is, right? And if I did put 50p, it would treat that then as a string and I wouldn't be able to do any calculations on it. So it's saying cola bottles are 50p, and then this input here is an integer, and we're asking how many would they like to buy, and then we perform a simple calculation. So we are multiplying the quantity by the cola bottles. That's going to create a total, and then we're printing out the answer here. Now one thing that I've done with this is I've used something called camel casing. If you look at the B in cola bottle, you can't have a variable with a space. So if I did this, Python wouldn't really run properly, and the reason being is it doesn't really understand because it treats these as two separate things. So what I do is a personal preference. Some people use underscores, some people keep it all lowercase. I tend to use this, what's called camel casing. So I start off all variables with a lowercase, and then if there's another word in there, what I will typically do is I'll capitalize the first letter of that word. It just makes it a bit more readable for me. Now if I run this code, it says how many cola bottles would you like to buy? Well, we want to buy 20. When I press enter, it worked out then the total cost is 10. Reason being, each cola bottle is obviously 50 pence. So the last one is very similar to what we've just done, and the only difference is we are going to be doing a little bit more maths with this one. So the last one basically asks for how many packets of Haribo they'd like and how many bottles of water they'd like. So this is what I've done here. This program essentially asks for a few things. If I just move this up so you can still see the question. So we start off by setting our variables Haribo and water. Haribo set to 1, water set to 25p, and I'm asking then how many packets would you like to buy. I'm turning that into an integer and I'm storing it as a variable called order1, and then I'm doing the same thing and I'm storing it as a variable called order2. Now it doesn't really matter what I call these variables, it's just for readability. Now to work out my total, I've had to use brackets because I want to work out this first, and then I want to work out this, and then whatever the total sum is of this maths problem, I want to add it to the total sum of this maths problem. So when I run this, how many packets of Haribo would you like? I'd like 5 please. How many bottles of water? 4. The total order value is £6, which is great, or 6. Now, with that in mind, there's a few things that I could do with this that are a little bit different. Some people don't like using proper naming conventions, but let me just show you now how less readable we could make this code. This is what you should never do. Let's say, for example, I call this variable A, and that's B, and that's C, and that's D. And then we do that's A, and that's C, that's A, that's B, and that's D. So this now, code will still work. It'll still work beautifully. If I put this in, how many would you like to buy? 5 and 4. Oop, D is not defined. So I've used that B again. My bad. I should have been D there. It would work beautifully if I put the correct variable names in. So that works out as 6. So it gives me the same answer as before. But in terms of readability now, that is much more difficult to read in my eyes, because A times C, if you've got a really long list of really big program, you get really confused with it. So my advice is always use meaningful variables, so that when you then go to debug or find issues with your code, or try to rectify issues, you know then exactly where the variables are, what they're called, and if there's any problems, it's easier to sort out. So those are the answers then to the challenges which are here.